everybody, it's Marianne. It's so right. And today I'm going to be talking about bobbin work. I think you already know if you watch the other videos, I love embellishing. And bobbin work is really great for that. So many years ago, when I had my designer diamond from Husqvarna Viking, I bought the specialty bobbin case that looks like this. They did change the part number and the box has changed. So this is the newer box with the newer part number. And what's great about getting a specialty bobbin case is that if you were to try and manipulate the tension on your bobbin case, there would be a little screw. It's this screw. If you were to adjust it and then you wanted to go back to normal sewing, it's very hard to get your tension back where it should be for normal sewing. So that's why you should buy a specialty bobbin case. Now, say for instance, your brand machine doesn't have one. What you should just do is buy another bobbin case that's identical to yours and mark it, maybe with a little bit of nail polish on it so that you know that that's the one that you started playing with. That you know you can always readjust that one. Leave the good one alone. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into my machine. And you'll take out your bobbin that you might have had in there. And we got to take off the stitch plate. So I'm just going to, oh, and here, I'm on the Husqvarna Viking. This is the Brilliance 75Q. But what I'm doing pertains to pretty much all of the computerized machines from Viking. And the things that I talk about are very general for all machines. So now I took off my stitch plate and I'm going to take out this piece that holds the bobbin case down. This is the original bobbin case. Don't mess with the tension. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside. And it's nice that it is a different color so I can tell which one is my specialty. And I'm going to place this inside here. And to make sure, whether you're putting back the original or this one, to make sure that it's seated correctly, you might want to turn the hand wheel one full revolution. And what happens is you see that it's not doing what I call a dance. It's not jumping. It's staying nice and flush. Then you know you got it seated correctly. Now I'm going to put back this piece. That lays in there. I'm going to put back my plate, my stitch plate, raise that needle up, put this back here. And on this particular model, the tab is right here. And that little tab has to go into a slot in the back. On other brands like the Epic, there's two tabs, one on each side, and you would make sure you get them in those two. And all you're going to do is angle it down so that the tab goes in, and this is all squared up, and then you're just going to snap it down. It is very tight. Just give it a good push. But you got to make sure that you get that tab into that groove. So now I have my specialty bobbin case in there. Let's talk about putting the decorative thread that you want to do on your bobbin. It's not so easy to put it on the bobbin winder of the machine. I do recommend that you hand wind it. So if you were to put this on your winder, you're going to wind it pretty much the same way. I'm going to start wrapping it because if it was on my winder, it would wind this way. So I'm going to hold my tail and get that started. And you're going to just start wrapping it. Ooh, come on, get in there. Grab that. Okay. Going to start wrapping it. When you get a couple of layers in there, take that tail and just snip it. Then finish winding it. I would recommend that you put as much as you can on it. You don't want it that when you put all that on there, that it's not exceeding the edge of the bobbin. You want it just inside the bobbin. So I'm going to just go over, oh, and I'm using Razzle Dazzle from Superior. Love this stuff. I use it in so many different projects other than bobbin work also. So now I have it on my bobbin. And it's wound just like your regular sewing thread. Now, because I have a specialty bobbin case in there, when I drop this in, I am going to pull it under the tension bar, just like we do for normal sewing. And this is just a habit I've gotten into with every machine there is. When I drop it in, I hold my finger on the bobbin so that as I pull my thread under the little tension bar, I'm ensuring I'm getting it all the way under. Now I'm going to leave that there, and I'm not going to put it into the grooves and cut it because I want to bring this thread to the surface. So I'm going to hold my top thread, and I'm going to turn my wheel one full turn and bring up my beautiful razzle dazzle. I'm going to put my bobbin on here. With the Viking specialty bobbin case, there are instructions in the box. You can at times flip the bobbin over, excuse me, you don't flip it over, you wind it backwards, and it gives it a different effect. So you have those possibilities. And I'm going to show you what happens when you put it into tension like I just did, and what happens when you don't. So over here, I have my samples that I was stitching a little earlier. And when you're doing bobbin work, your beautiful fabric is facing down, and you're working with the wrong side up. So whatever you stitch is always a surprise. I mean, this looks pretty nice, but it's the other side that's the great side. So let's talk about what I did here. I took interfacing that I fused to the wrong side of the fabric, and I still put a tearaway stabilizer on top of that. Remember, we're working with the right side of the fabric facing down. And over here, I started to stitch out some samples. And I'm going to stitch in a few minutes to show you the machine in action. But here I did a plain straight stitch. I had a stitch length, which is the average 2.5. And then I increased it to 6.0. So what happened? I turned it over. And here was my 2.5. And then when I got up to my 6.0, it spaced it out. Then I switched to zigzag. The normal was with 3.0 and went to a length of 4.0, and that was my zigzag. Then I increased the width, but I kept the length. I'm going to turn that over. Now, I left these tails here on purpose, just so that you could see how that will be when you pull it out. But here's my original zigzag, and then I changed the width. Then over here, I'm going to come back to that one. I want to explain something here. Over here, I took a serpentine stitch, and then these are the serpentine stitch, and here I changed the length. Over here is a feather stitch. Now, after I did those, I decided to see what would happen if I didn't put my thread in tension. So I didn't pull it under the bar. I just brought my thread to the surface. Now it's going to be real loose. And when I did that, my original zigzag got a little looser. My serpentine got looser. My feather stitch got looser when I did those. Now also, if your machine has what's called a locking stitch on the Viking machine, it's called a fix. I do recommend that you turn it off, because when you pick a new stitch or and you're not going to use your cutter when you're doing bobbin work. You're going to, after it's done, you're going to raise your foot and pull the fabric out. But when your fixed light is on, I do recommend that you undo it, because in this one instance right here, when I stitched, it did a locking stitch from the other side, and this is what was happening underneath. When I don't do that, I get a neater start. So that's also important. So when you do samples, I recommend that you mark them, what you did, like length and width, especially if it's a specialty stitch. You can start making markings also about what size you might have made it. And then you're going to have to maybe number the type of stitch it was. But when you got a straight stitch, you already know where it was in the machine or your zigzags. Always test on scrap. of the same thing you're going to do. So simulate your interfacing, your tearaway stabilizer of the same fabric you're going to work on, because you're going to get different results. Another thing is, depending on what color you put in the needle will also make a difference. On these, the originals that I did, I had green thread in my needle. And when you look real close, you'll see itty bits of green coming through. But then I went, all right, what if I put white in my bobbin, in my needle? And it gets interesting. Look at here. I have white thread in my needle. So that could be a whole different look that you might want. That's very interesting. And here I did not have my razzle dazzle in the tension. I left it loose. So you get all kinds of different results. And sometimes you end up spending so much time trying to figure out what you want to do, you don't get the project done. But let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to place my fabric under the foot, wrong side up. And this is where you just start experimenting. On this particular machine, so every time I picked a new stitch, my fix button kept coming back on, and I didn't want that. So I could unlight it each time, but if I forget, that little knot happened. So I had gone into my settings. So I went into here. Oh wait, let me do that again. I went into these three little dots, then to what we call gears. And over here is Fix Auto. Originally there was a blue dot in there, and I removed it so it wouldn't do a locking stitch. And I don't recommend that you use stitches that go, you're not going to use your reverse. It just will make a clumpy mess. You're also got to pick stitches that kind of move forward. Feather stitches do have a little bit of a back stitch, but there's other stitches. I'm just going to pick one as an example that I'm going to tell you I know will not work well. For instance, these leaves. That stitch is not going to work well with bobbin work. You want something that's a little bit more open and airy. So I had gone in when I was in the main menu and I scrolled. Here was one satin stitch, a serpentine stitch, but there are other menus that also have serpentine stitches. For instance, in this quilt menu, these are serpentine stitches. That's a very large one. But pick stitches. This feather stitch right here, I don't think that one would work so well because there's a lot of forward and backward stitching. And your can't razzle dazzle is so thick, that is not going to look like those three little lines when you get finished. It's going to look like a clump. It's not going to work well. So that's why I had picked that feather stitch when I did the one on my fabric. But I'm just going to play again. Here's another serpentine stitch. This one I didn't do before. So let's see what happens when that goes. And in here, I do not have it in the tension. It's going right out. It's not in there. So let's see. I'm going to do it one with and one without. So I'm going to start stitching. Oh, it's always a surprise. What's going on underneath? Love this. All right, I am not going to use my cutter. I'm going to raise my foot and I'm going to pull my fabric out. And I'm going to trim. And then I look for the surprise. Look at that. Oh, is that nice? It looks like beads. I never know what's going to happen. I never tried that. Looks like beads. And the white little thread is in between the little stitches there. It gives it a nice accent, I think. But let me try it where I put this razzle dazzle in my tension. When you are doing bobbin work also, keep in mind your thread is thicker. So you might run out of bobbin thread. So you have to start figuring out the distance of what you want to travel. If you think that you're going to be going a long distance, make sure you're starting out with a full bobbin. Use the bobbin that's almost running out with for smaller lengths. All right, so we had that one. Now I'm going to do same stitch right next to it. And I did put it in tension. I'm rechecking. Yep, I did. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch again. Same stitch. And you know what? While I'm there, let's try this. I'm going to go back over it. Oh, I can go all day long just playing. Some stitches will fall on top of one another, some won't. Let's see. This is the one in tension. Look at how it tightened up. It's not as loose as the original. And then when you start going back over the same stitch, yes, it sometimes goes on top of the other one. You'll just have to figure out where to end before you turn around so that it doesn't come too close together if you don't want that. Maybe you want that. That's interesting also. Over here is a pillow I had done. And I used serpentine stitches. And this particular one, I had the thread in the tension. But the same stitch, this was in tension. But the feather stitch, I took out. It was that wasn't a feather stitch. Hold on one second. That was a stitch that looks like that. But again, it doesn't look like it on this side. On the wrong side it did. So in tension, out of tension. All depends on what you're trying to achieve. It's good to experiment and go both ways. Put one in, put one out, put one in. And I hope you enjoyed this class. So have a good time doing bobbin work. See you soon. Bye.